All right, let's get going. We want to be respectful of everybody's time. We've got you for a half hour. Welcome. This is the Impact Group Digital Leadership Academy. We tackle a different subject each month. This month, we're talking about how to have difficult, productive discussions. Boy, that's a fun one, right? Because we all love conflict. This is a hard topic. And I'm so excited today to have my co-host, Phil Herman, as always. Phil, would you like to introduce yourself?
Thanks, Tom. I'm Phil Herman. I've been with the Impact Group for almost 2 years, coming up on 2 years. My entire career before that time was in public education as a teacher, a principal, a director of human resources, an assistant superintendent, and for 11 years as a superintendent. Got the opportunity almost 2 years ago to join the Impact Group and to work with schools and boards of developmental disabilities and cities and villages in a different capacity. And so that brings me to you today.
Well, thank you. And Ann, we're so honored to have Ann Coleridge with us, the leader of a rather large organization out in Pennsylvania of CPARC. You want to just introduce yourself, Ann?
Sure. Hi, everybody. My name's Ann Coldridge. I am the executive director for the ARC of Cumberland and Perry County. We're here in Central PA. We're roughly the fourth largest chapter. We're widespread. We provide a large variety continuum of services to people with intellectual disabilities. And I myself have this calling and passion because I am a special needs mother.
And Ann is, I've had a privilege of working with Ann for many years, and an exceptional leader. So I'm so excited to have Ann with us today. So today we're talking about how to have difficult discussions. One of the things I think to get across initially, and I want Ann and Phil to, we're going to just have a discussion about this, is organizations that embrace difficult discussions thrive. Those that don't. I mean, let's face it, those that have the guts to talk about things that aren't going well are going to be, they're going to be better off, as opposed to those that keep sweeping it under the rug. Because if you keep sweeping it under the rug, it grows and it grows and it grows. One of the things we found is to have just clear expectations from your staff that how do we do it here? We have difficult discussions. And then we're going to talk in a moment about equipping people to do it. So it's one thing to say, have difficult discussions. Everybody will say, yes, that sounds good. And then when it actually takes, you actually go to do it, people have a hard time. And Ann, I'd like to, when we worked with you guys, we all worked together and we developed something called the CPARC way together. And maybe just the idea is it was to establish clear behavioral expectations for the staff. And we want to talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, so I think, Tom, when we started to work with you, the leadership team and I knew like everything's always about communication. And I think, probably the most important conversations to have are the ones you're avoiding sometimes.
Yeah.
And so, how do you push that through a large organization where people are spread out? So the first thing we did was like, how do we want to be when everybody comes to work every day? Ideally, in a perfect world, what would that look like? And we needed to break it down into sort of steps and ideas and concepts to give out to the staff. So I don't know if you want me to run through it, Tom, or just or what our bullet points are, or some of them, or
I'll kind of take it from the top, and you just
okay.
So the idea was that I think a lot of times when we're frustrated with people's behaviors, we're under the assumption that everyone else was raised just like us, because everybody knows how to be nice, everybody knows how to say thank you and please. No, they don't. No, they don't. No, they don't. We need to have clear expectations. So with CPARC, what we did is we developed their staff, right? They were part of these and developed such things as how do we do it at CPARC? We give grace, we listen, we thoughtfully plan our meetings. One of the ones which is so fascinating, though, one of the things that the crew is, how do we do it at CPARC? We embrace difficult, constructive conversations. This is the statement that they would work on. We're a courageous organization where staff members can have constructive and respectful discussions about difficult work-related topics. This is one of their statements, which they then talk about. How has it been going, and as far as just having those statements put out there, and as far as having some clarity around what we hope from folks?
It's been going really well. I think to your earlier point, like, hey, everybody likes to have confrontation, but setting this into play has been so beneficial because it's several things are going on. One is like, as we're pushing it out and really wanting the staff to embrace it, we're using it as a tool. And for some that are sort of awkward in that, like, oh my gosh, how am I going to broach this difficult conversation? This this is almost like the tool to do that. Hey, we're going to sit down, we're going to review the Sea Park Way, right today. We're going to be working on this one. We're going to be embracing those difficult conversations, because there's more to risk. There's more at risk if you don't have these conversations, than if you just avoid them altogether. So it's been going well. I think our staff are getting there. The other thing I would say is we have to remind people, we have to start or to say, hey, thanks. That was we knew that was difficult for you. And today, you decided to bring that to us. And you know what? Good for you. So it is going well overall. We use it at staff meetings. We use it, who I'm talking to today, sometimes it's staff or just at each other and little passive aggressive things. It kind of just cuts right through that and says, you know what, we're going to get to the bottom of this and we're going to move forward in the way we expect everybody to be. And it's been going really well.
And the key to that is that throughout that process, what happened is the staff themselves, really it's a two-part process. The first was we had asked the staff, what kind of place do you want to have here? And they answered questions like, we want it to be kind and supportive and fun and engaging and professional. And then we collectively put it back to them and said, great, what behaviors are you going to do, which is going to manifest that environment? And the best part is it was the staff that came up with, it was their idea to come up with grace, listen, thoughtfully plan our meetings, we're positive in our interaction, we have difficult discussions. It was their idea. So when that established that Sea Park Way, this is now how they expect to behave. And again, what we're getting at here is the ability to equip people. Because again, as leaders, why doesn't so-and-so have those difficult discussions? They may not have any idea how to approach that. Phil, you're a leadership veteran. You've been doing this for a long time as far as having difficult discussions and helping others have difficult discussions. What are some key things you've seen that are really important when we're equipping others to have those discussions?
Sure. I think one of the things that we sometimes we're going to talk about a lot of different components today. And one of the things that we need to think about is preparation. So we're going to talk about different components, but most often there is time to have preparation. And what preparation does is it really, by taking time to understand an issue and to think through the possible challenges that the person that we're going to have a difficult conversation with is experiencing, it allows us to go into a conversation knowing that we have really shown them the respect that we're digging in to know this situation really well. We've done our research, we've done our homework, we really are able to talk about the components of a difficult conversation articulately. We care about this situation. Doing preparation for a difficult conversation shows that we care, and that's an essential component in any difficult conversation, because it helps develop that relationship and to build empathy for the person that we're talking with. So we're going to talk, I think, more about empathy and listening in a moment, but preparation is one way to demonstrate that we care, that we've taken the time to really look into the circumstances so that we can articulately discuss those circumstances with whoever we're having a conversation with. Sometimes there's not time to prepare. I was telling Tom a story one day when I was an elementary principal. On the first day of school, a little kindergartner girl was in the first day of school, and she was propping herself up between two desks and swinging, and she fell and broke her arm. And so she was out for a couple of days, and she came back. So it was now the third or fourth day of school, and she had her arm in a sling, and she ran out onto the playground, so excited to be there the first time on the playground, and she tripped and couldn't put her arm down and split her head open on a railroad tie. I've now had this girl in my care for 2 days. On the first day, she broke her arm. On the second day, she had stitches in her head. I had to call her parents and tell her what happened. So there was not a lot of time and to tell them what happened. And there was not a lot of time for preparation. But the importance of being empathetic, of listening, of maintaining composure, all the kind of things we'll talk about today are still essential if you don't have time to prepare. I did have time to prepare when her parents came in to talk to me about what safety protocols we have in place, and to make sure that I was really understanding where they're coming from, but able to address their concerns that they had coming in as well. So Sometimes we have time to prepare, sometimes we don't have time to prepare, but if you have the time, it shows respect for those that we're meeting with.
You know, that preparation, there's two pieces to that. The one is what you're going to say. You need to know what you're going to do, but it's also, are you aware of your physicality? What I mean by that is there's something called rodeo energy and cowboy energy, which I just love this. If you're trying to train a horse, and if you're all geared up, and if you're approaching that horse, like, this horse is so jittery, this horse is all restless. It's not the horse, it's the trainer. If you're approaching a horse all geared up, the horse reflects that. That's rodeo energy. If you approach a horse that you're training calm, in charge, and just that horse will reflect that back. That is cowboy energy. So here's what I ask you all. If you're going into a difficult discussion, if you are ramped up with rodeo energy, God bless you. you're going to have a hard time, because that other person, they are automatically reflecting that back. So I love what Phil's saying. Be prepared not only with what you're going to say, but man, whatever you got to do, take 30 seconds, meditate, pray, do whatever. Just get in a place where you can project what you want to project. That's going to come back. And what are your thoughts? You're a professional. This, as far as you've been doing this for a long time, just being prepared. And how do you approach a situation when you're going into a difficult talk?
I would definitely agree. Preparation is key, and I always try to be mindful of what are we all working like. You got to center everybody, right? Like, this might be a difficult conversation, but the result is what we're all striving for. This is what we all want to work. And again, go back to like just having those expectations set out and clear. It sort of shifts, especially if the other people are heated, it shifts them, right? It shifts them into the mindset of, right, this is how we've been told time and time again we want to do things around here. And I did buy into that. And right now I'm gonna just kind of cool off and diffuse and listen to what everybody has to say. So definitely preparation, but definitely, that piece about just keep communicating what the expectations are, because people are getting it. Sometimes it takes a while, but people are getting it, and having it clearly put out there definitely centers and grounds people when you're going into those conversations.
And you've heard us say this 1,000 times, Anne, that people need to hear things 11 to 15 times before it clicks. So if we want, I love the phrase, to be clear is to be kind. To be unclear is unkind. So one of the ways we need to be clear is be very precise in what we're saying, but then repeat it a lot. Phil, the empathetic aspect is such a vital piece of your toolkit, because it's so sincere, and it just is. Want to expand on that a little bit about some of the different ways in which you approach these circumstances?
Sure. I mean, I think empathy is really understanding and acknowledging someone else's feelings. Now, that does not mean that we have to absorb all those feelings in terms of what you're talking about, Tom, as far as the having that calm composure. So we don't have to raise to the level of emotion that is in the room, but we can still seek to absorb and understand that emotion. I think one of the key ways to do that is to really listen with the intent of understanding the feelings behind what is being expressed. And Anne was talking about this a little bit, or alluding to it at the beginning. Are we able to focus on the problem and not the person? And so I think when we're demonstrating empathy, ways to do that are to listen really actively, giving the other person a chance to speak, even until they exhaust themselves, being that patient until they are done speaking. And sometimes we want to jump in with a counterpoint. Take a note on the counterpoint. You'll get to your chance to speak, but we can absorb and absorb and absorb, and then have an opportunity to talk about what some of those points are, and then frame it always in our response that that individuals have articulated part of the problem, and let's make sure that we are focusing on what that problem is, and not the person. We can focus on situations without attacking the opposite person's character, or the person that we're having a difficult conversation with. And if their character is the issue, if that's what we're talking about is in the difficult conversation, then we can talk about their behavior and the results of that behavior and how it has been hurtful to their own performance or the performance of the organization or to others. And so there's always ways to focus on the problem and not the person. And we can demonstrate empathy by being patient in our listening.
You know, Phil, I want you to hit that again, because words and phrases are important. If we want our staff to really absorb things, it's something we can't say it once or use different terminology. How do we say it? Phil brought something to our office, which is so good, in that we are hard on the problem, not the person. Again, that phrase, it's been, Phil's done a wonderful job. And I actually hear our staff members now, when they're engaging with one another, they'll say, hey, look, let's be hard on the problem and not the person. Again, the use of those words really encapsulate that. And Phil, any thoughts on that? Just that is such a simple but a powerful shift in the way people think about things. I think it's had a big impact here.
Well, and there's multiple ways to look at that. We can look at that in terms of past situations. Let's dissect the past problem or challenge, and really kind of beat that up. That what are the circumstances that led to that situation, while caring for the people that are a part of that conversation, and we learn a lot from those situations. You can also just modify it a little bit and say, be hard on the product, not the person, when we're trying to generate something together.
Right.
So, let's put something up on the wall and beat that up until we're all comfortable with it. And it doesn't matter. We don't have to, it's not an attack on any person that helped create that. We're really focused on what are the end results. And so whether we're talking about a past problem that generated an end result that we're not happy with, or looking at a future, something that we're producing for the future, what is the desired end result? Always being hard on the circumstances and the situation, and trying not to attribute those circumstances to anyone's individual character or to how they identify themselves.
And how does that I've seen you lead many times. You have such you just exude kindness and empathy, but also like the best teachers I ever had, I respected the heck out of. They were nice, but I didn't mess with them. You have those same characteristics. You are so kind and empathetic, but I wouldn't mess with you in a very positive way. How do you exude that as far as making sure that we're being hard on the product and not the people?
I think I just always I try to always see the best in people, which is, for us, it's we give grace, right? I could tell a little bit of a story recently. We had a supervisor at one of our group homes, and she was avoiding the difficult conversations, and she was leaving passive aggressive Post-it notes to her staff. And so you had, this getting amped up and this getting amped up. And we said, hey, we're all going to sit down together. And we're just going to open up this conversation. And we went through the entire list. We didn't say we embrace fierce conversations. We just said, we're going to review the entire C Parkway. And then we just sort of asked broad questions. Well, how do you think that's working here in this particular little microcosm? And it was surprising that people felt that gave them permission to say the tough things, knowing that the end goal is, how do we want to function here as a team? What can we do better? I don't think, Rome wasn't built in a day, but I think when people feel heard, seen, validated, it's motivating them to want to do better, to want to function as a team. And that's how we see it. I agree 100%. It's not, sometimes it is the people. I'm sure we've all been there. But again, give grace, because maybe the issue somebody's having today, it is just one more thing that others are looking at as broke the camel back, but maybe there's a real issue going on for the staff person. We have a tagline here: empower, inspire, and educate. And it's generally focused at our individuals, but I say, no, that also applies to our staff. We're trying to empower them with tools. We're trying to inspire them to do their best job every day. And we're trying to educate them on exactly how they should be doing that.
And the key is how we should do that. If we, again, we beat this dead horse. If we assume that people know how to act, you are out of your skull because people have no idea. And again, the C Park way, and you're talking about giving grace. Your first C Park, we give grace. We give grace to each other. I mean, we give each other the benefit of the doubt and assume the best of others. This is something you do, and that provides that paradigm to say, if that's grace, gosh, let's look at these actions. Does that match what we're talking about? And he's right, and allow them to talk about that. So we've got these different pieces. We're going to talk a functional element as well. We've just got a couple minutes left. This is a topic we could talk about this for 6 hours, right? So we're just trying to get to the piece. So we've been empathetic, and we've listened, and we've really sought to understand. There comes a point now, we've done that. Now we need to functionally give the direction. This is where people sometimes they get stuck, and they'll have a 3-hour discussion with this employee. There's an acronym which we've used for a while. We've worked on it with Ann as well. It's called DESC with a C, DESC. And again, this is a larger training, but the idea is we're coming into a situation. So we've listened, we've been empathetic, and now we understand what we're talking about. The D is we have the individual we're having a tough conversation with. The D is describe specifically the behavior which isn't working. This person is supposed to be at 8 o'clock. They've been late 7 of the past 10 shifts. So-and-so, I want to be clear. You're to be here at 8 o'clock. You've been absent, or you've been late 7 of the past 10 shifts. And I've got a document that shows that. Describe specifically what's going on. E, how does it affect the rest of the staff? Now, gosh, if you're coming in a couple minutes late, that puts your colleagues in a difficult spot. That puts, the students or those people with developmental disabilities in a difficult spot. People count on you. D-E, the S is specifically what has to happen differently. Let me be clear. We are here at 8 in the morning. I need you to be here on time at 8 o'clock every day for the rest of December. Are we crystal clear? Great. C, consequences. You begin with a positive. Now, John, man, do the students and then the residents here, they love you. You do a wonderful job. We're so happy you are with us. Understand though, John, the consequences are if you're not here every day at 8 o'clock throughout the rest of December, X happens. We're going to write you up. We're going to terminate you, whatever. You see the simplicity of that. Describe what happens, effect on the rest of the staff, specifically what has to happen differently, the consequences beginning with a positive. And that we've seen a lot of discipline discussions where people get all nervous and they'll say things like, John, I need you to do better. Okay. What in the world does that mean? So if to be clear is to be kind and to be unclear is to be unkind, how do you prepare yourself for those difficult discussions so you're very, very clear? I don't know, Phil or Ann, if you want to have any thoughts about when you have those tough discussions. Again, people are nervous. They don't quite know what to say. What do you both do as far as having a structure to have a tough discussion? Phil, I don't know if you want to maybe give it a shot.
Sure. I mean, defining what the expectation is and being very clear about what the expectation is and what we're looking for is an essential component. I found a lot of success with then developing the solution to meet that expectation together. And so there's an opportunity to build, again, common ground. We've heard, we've listened carefully. We have a good perspective about the feelings that whatever circumstances generated. But what you're talking about there, that really clear, specific of what has to happen, that end result, of someone being on time on a daily basis. Now, what needs to happen and what is the solution to enable us to achieve that result? I find that it's very valuable and generally leads to more likely that there is a true solution to what the issue is when we're able to develop collaboratively together how we're going to get to that end result.
Appreciate that. And what are your thoughts on just what approach you take when you're having those tough discussions so it doesn't go off the rails in all kind of directions?
I think keep it simple and keep it clear. I know, there's little things like I try to sit Phil said earlier, like attack the be hard on the problem, not the person. If we're having a sit down, I sit beside a person. I don't sit at the head of a table. Like it's just simple things like that. Like the problem's out here, right? It's not personal. But yeah, just saying like, this is what we're seeing. This is what we want to see. How do we work together to help you and to help you get there? I think is just sort of my combination when I'm having those conversations with people.
And you know what I love about that is the thoughtful nature of it, because the intent here is to set the other person up for success. And I think a lot of times, I mean, I've noticed in schools, and especially in the development of disabilities world, leaders are very modest in the best way. I don't think sometimes that executive directors of large facilities or superintendents have any idea how much they freak people out. You have no idea. Like this is the superintendent. This is the exec, and you guys all think, well, gosh, it's just Ann, it's just Phil. Well, people, so the very act of sitting next to someone or being aware, I think is a very important place. I mean, any other thoughts about how to put the other person at ease when we're having these discussions?
I mean, I've read the strategy before, and many times the circumstances don't allow for this. But just what Ann was saying, if you can take a walk with someone and have a conversation, and sometimes there are other people that need to be involved in a difficult conversation. Sometimes there are notes that need to be taken. But if you can take a walk with someone that you need to have a difficult conversation with, you are side by side, walking together. It is much less adversarial. Just the circumstances itself are less adversarial, and there's a whole set of research on setting the tone for a conversation. One way to do that, if there's an opportunity, is take a walk and have a conversation where you're walking side by side.
Yeah, this is good stuff. Again, we've had a half hour here. We could talk about this for 3 more hours. There's so much good stuff. And have you ever played guitar?
I have.
You have?
How do you know that? Do you know that?
Actually, I wasn't sure if you did. So I want to hear some. When I you kind of surprised me there. What I generally get is someone, if I ask somebody, have you ever played guitar? And if they say no, I'll say, okay, what would happen if I gave you a guitar and put you up on stage and said, go for it? How's that going to go? If somebody that's never played guitar, that's silly, because that's a learned skill, and the person would look like a fool, right? How about this, new manager or leader? Go have a difficult discussion with that staff member. Understand that if you don't equip them with the skills or the training, they're on stage with a guitar, they can't play. And we wonder why in the world people are falling on their face. Just what we're suggesting here is that this is a difficult thing. People would rather do anything, most people, than have a difficult discussion. So if indeed you buy into the fact, as we do, that organizations that thrive embrace difficult discussions, if you believe that, how are you equipping your leaders to do so? How are you equipping your leaders to make sure that they're engaging in an empathetic, thoughtful manner? Because if you don't equip them, frankly, don't be surprised when there are train wrecks all over the place, because people have no idea what they're doing. And that's okay. And any final thoughts, Phil or Ann, as we're ending this session here?
Yeah, to your point, Tom, I'll just say this: as we've adopted the Sea Parkway, we've done another survey of staff, and we had 2 people respond that they really appreciated this because they are also now applying it in their personal life.
Oh wow, that is wonderful feedback.
Yeah.
Phil,
I would just say we didn't really get a chance to talk about it, but in addition to all the things that we talked about today, if there is a need to follow up, follow up. If you decided that you were going to memorialize something, get back to someone, share notes, find out an answer to a question that was left in the conversation. Again, as a demonstration of the care that we have for these individuals, just like we plan on the backside of it, make sure that we're following up, do what we say we're going to do, basically.
Thank you. And as a total shameless plug to close this out, we're the Impact Group. We work with, gosh, school districts, boards of development disabilities, and many others. We do a lot of strategic planning. We do staff development to how to create a positive culture, how to create great leaders, crisis communication, and we are the outsourced communications firm for many, many organizations. So we so appreciate everyone that attended today. And thank you so much for being here. I need to hear you play guitar sometime now that I know. Phil, thank you for your time today as well.
Sure.
Appreciate everybody. Have a wonderful day.